Oh man. Once again, for the big 10th birthday of the Gunncast, episode 10, not really a birthday, but we're here, and I'm going to one take it whether you like it or not.
Great.
And this is Cousy, your humble host. As usual, we have Mr. Yavid, but we also have a surprise guest this week. I know all the listeners' hearts just fluttered, thinking, who could it be? Corey Taylor? Tech 9?
Way cooler.
You heard him, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eugene Gill from King 810.
Fuck's good.
He does, in fact, fucks good.
That's not what I was getting at with that, too.
We're here doing a podcast. It's not Sunday, so I won't speak the Lord's name, Dairy Queen. But, speaking of, I was a participant in a somewhat church-like gathering the other day.
What day?
It was on Friday. Friday. Downtown Detroit. I saw Kanye West. You hear the rain started coming down right when I said his name.
The go.
I don't know how many people listening to the Gunncast are Kanye fans. But that guy is a little out of his mind. But also a little genius.
Yeah.
He was doing an album listening party that I was fortunate enough, I don't know if that's the right word, but I was there. It was interesting. And I can't tell if that dude's the smartest guy in music or the craziest. Maybe both. He is the highest paid, so whatever he's doing, it's working.
Could be overthinking it, but it seems like you have to be both.
Crazy and genius?
It's like a yin-yang where I don't think you could probably function in society as a person without the counterweight, if that is the counterweight. But even if it isn't, it's still part of the spectrum that it does have a counterweight, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I think that's why people are so adamant when people they really love's not the word, respect's not the word, adore not the word. It could be any of them. Admire, do something that they don't, that falls short. They think it's way worse than it is. So when someone who's really good does something that's just better than everyone else, but still not as good,
up to standard,
then they think it sucks beyond is possible, because I think that person has pushed the palette up so high that it gives you a greater distance to fall to. Does that make sense?
Would a good example of that be, Gene, I don't know if you saw it, but me and David went and saw Quentin Tarantino's newest movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And when we got out of it, you were quoted as saying it was the worst movie in the universe. But then you said, well, it's not that bad. It's just because Quentin Tarantino's 8 other movies are so good, and he kind of has this reputation that when he puts out a movie that's not in line with what you expect, or not, up to par, if that's what you think, then it's kind of a big yikes moment.
Yeah, I think in a way, although I didn't mean it was the worst movie in the universe.
Of course.
Because I went on to say how it's better than everyone's movie. I just, it wasn't my judgment that it was bad or good. It was me recognizing to myself that I was letting myself down,
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
I think we've had this discussion before, not on the podcast, but the way that expectations, especially with art and especially for me with film, expectations can have an influence on your enjoyment or your liking of something.
Yeah, what's so crazy about that is I think that that applies to life. So when you're on the social media, you act in a way that's oriented towards that type of stream kind of feed happening. And then when you look at your own sad, pitiful life, you're kind of let down.
So you're saying that your expectations for your own life are influenced by what you see on social media?
Yeah, I think if you have expectation, what do they say? Expectation is the enemy of or do they say happiness is something without expectation? They say a bunch of stupid shit, but my point would be if you were looking forward to like a movie and or maybe whatever it was, and you do the old media blackout where you don't watch the trailer and you go in unassuming, unexpected. You know, you hear people say that all the time.
I try to do that as much as I can.
Right. So that, to me, social media is the life trailer that you're constantly plugged into.
Okay.
Getting a constant feed on life,
And the
therefore
actual
establishing some type of standard without any orientation to the world. So, for example, if you wake up at 5 in the morning, or if you use, you're probably not one of those people, so maybe 7
1
in the morning,
p.m.
1 p.m. if you're you. If you lay in bed and check your phone, you've went 100 different places and you haven't even got out of bed yet.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Just think about, like, you know, your great-great-grandfather 200 years ago or whatever. You've seen a million times more than he ever possibly could have. Most likely. Yeah,
your Instagram feed in a week contains more pictures than your grandparents have probably ever even laid eyes on. That's not the point. The point is, don't you think that is a trailer of some sorts to? It's like a looking glass, kind of.
Right.
It's like a window pane to life.
All social media really is just watching how other people are living, right? So you kind of, I think, are naturally going to get that, like, you're going to compare their life to yours and what you're doing. So it's kind of, yeah, like you said, like constantly watching this standard of like how you should be living, because it's what everyone else is doing.
But you're not seeing how they're actually living.
Right, you're seeing how they live on social media,
right.
How they front for the gram, how they finesse for the gram.
Right. So that was just a thought experiment as usual.
It's a little interesting to think about.
Is that kind of idea of, you know, when you hear media blackout and things, and you walk in and you just watch a movie and there's like a certain richness, you have to wonder if that translates into like some type of richness of character, if you will, just following the poetic terms here. You know what I mean?
Whereas everything that you do in your life is fresher and more exciting if you weren't to have any sort of media or social media or internet access.
Yeah.
Like if we were to have went and done the bull run knowing nothing about it other than bulls run through the street, not watching videos, not looking at, you know, people writing up, if we just would have showed up and just experienced it all from the get, or really just traveling in general. You see a picture of the Eiffel Tower and you go, look at the Eiffel Tower, does it have the same effect as if you hear about what the Eiffel Tower is and then go see it for the first time with your own eyes? I don't know, I've never seen it.
Yeah, it's a strange, it's super weird. It's weird. The weird part about it is when you hear about it and then you show up, well, it's really hard. It's hard to decide, because how do I know? I've seen pictures of it before I've seen it in person.
Yeah.
You know?
You really have no way of knowing until you experience something that you've never seen before. in any sort of capacity.
Without reverse engineering it somehow yourself, which is what I was not going to do, but I was thinking, again, not to abuse the term after 5 minutes of a thought experiment, but how underwhelming is it that that does exist? And not the idea of looking at the photo and or whatever, but imagine the idea of hearing the lore, looking it up, knowing it's going to be so much better in person, and then because the picture is so underwhelming because it's a picture and pictures are, and then showing up and kind of placing it in between where you might have originally, but because you were so kind of prepped and you know, prefaced, it didn't go all the way, but it wasn't like a total letdown. It could just aid in its mediocrity or unremarkableness, you know?
Couldn't it also go the other way and you see a picture of it and then you see it in person and it's way better or something, you know? You're blown away, really blown away because your expectations were low.
Yeah, I just have a super strong inclination that picture people, they don't get blown away. They get a knee-jerk reaction to reach in their pocket and grab their phone.
Take a picture.
Yeah. Which is super fucking...
It's scary. It's really scary, I think. The way that people can't just experience and enjoy a moment nowadays without having to have evidence of it that they can flex on the gram with, so to say. People can't just experience something and have the memory. They need the picture, or they need the video, and that kind of goes back to the Kanye thing, because there was no phones allowed. But of course,
did the bag thing.
He did the bag thing, which it's crazy to me too that someone would try to sneak their phone in, because if you're going to this, you're in theory a big Kanye fan, and Kanye's saying, "Hey, I don't want anyone to have their phone," and then you're like, "Fuck you, Kanye."
Right.
It's like, what?
It's like you're going to his crib.
Right.
And you're not listening to his rules, like Willy Wonka status. Which
Kanye
is...
West, modern day Willy Wonka?
I come up with this shit right off the bat. It ain't even hard.
He's got that special recipe, clearly.
He's got the recipe, but what I was thinking of is that, to me, I don't like to sound like the old ass dude talking about, you know, the kids and shit, but it's like, it seems like thievery. I'll use the example that I don't really run into too much, but I have before. So with girls, so you meet some chick or whatever. I think I got it in some songs, or maybe they're not released, but maybe they are. About chicks stop fucking with you because you don't have the social.
Oh yeah, it's been one of the Yavid songs, I think.
I didn't put it out though, right? Or
maybe. I don't know.
It don't matter. The point is, like, this has happened, you know, a few dozen times. You know, if you don't have this, that, or the other thing, regardless of the reason, you know, I figure most people think I'm married or with kids, and I'm trying to be low key and just lying and saying I don't have them. You know, in the past.
I actually had a chick DM me and ask me she was like, is he like got a secret family and kids and stuff? Because he doesn't talk. Yeah. That's a whole other conversation about the kinds of DMs I get that don't even pertain to me. But she asked me if he's got a family and kids that like he keeps in secrecy because he doesn't talk, and I said no, just none of us do because we don't really care.
It's called not being interested, right?
So they think that the reason that David
doesn't go
out and talk to fans is because he's got a wife and kids.
Well, why he doesn't have a strong social media presence, like he was just saying.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's weird.
But when you meet a chick and you're like, nah, I don't have any of that stuff. If they're in their 20s and they're like raising an eyebrow, it's not gonna go good. Bunch of shit stop talking to me because of that shit, but. That wasn't the point. The point was, say this was just the easiest way for me to describe it. Say you had this person, it could be a dude or a chick or whatever, and, you know, say it was me. So say it's a chick and just completely obsessed with the phone and the social thing and all this stuff like that. it could be not a complete thought, and it kind of just hit me when you were talking about how scary it was that people were so into it, but it strikes me as strange that someone has to whip that out to share it with everyone. You know what I mean? So say you're with somebody doing something, and they're sharing it with a bunch of other people who aren't as close to them as you.
Yeah.
What does that really mean? It's almost like
what do they really care about?
Yeah, kind of. What do they really care about? But my point is, it's like someone that's always looking away, kind of thing.
Sure.
Where you're not sitting there thinking necessarily this person cares about all these other people more than me, like in an insecure way. But what I'm saying is their self. Over sitting here with you, they're trying to broadcast their fake life to others. So I didn't even get to the others point. I was saying, rather than doing whatever it is, they're obsessed with being cool as a real self-contained idea. Not like trying to impress others or whatever it be with others. I'm saying their obsession first and foremost is themselves and how they can portray themselves to be cool.
Right.
Over whatever is going on. And it could not even be me. Take me out of it completely, and you see people getting charged by elk because they're trying to take a fucking video. That person is so obsessed with being cool within themselves that they just get mauled.
Or
which is cool.
The bull run guy I keep talking about it, dude, but that shit really was influential. The bull run guy that got his face impaled because he was taking a selfie.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that happen with animals all the time. The chick that fell over the railing at the zoo and got mauled by like a tiger or lion or some shit because she was trying to take pictures. Like,
yeah.
It's like, dude, like, and it's not even like a crazy thing. It's not like you were in the safari or whatever, like out in the wild with them. Like, they're caged animals. Anybody can show up and pay their $40 and see them, but you got to take a picture of it to show everybody that you also paid your $40 to go see them.
That's probably why she was really leaning over the thing, trying to make it look like she was just out in the wild and seeing that tiger or something.
It's a strange thing to be said about the obsession with your own self, you know? That your first priority is to display that you're cool or valuable or happening or hip or well-traveled or cultural or that kind of, I think that translates to a lot of vice and virtue signaling and stuff, but I don't really want to get into that. It was just a thought. It doesn't have anything to do with anything.
One thing that I think's funny is the fact that you, not to talk too much about it, but you have 12,000 followers or something on social media, and you only follow like 100-something people. So there's probably some people out there that you actually know in real life that are like mad that you don't follow them on Instagram, and it's not because you're not friends with them or whatever, but it's just because you don't use it.
Yeah, I probably need to follow less because everyone. If I looked at it often, I would follow less because I feel like I don't want to know you, man, or even the people I know. I know most of the people that I do, but there are people I know better than all those people that I don't even look for people to follow.
Right.
And then once my shit comes, so many messages, I'll try to spend like 15 minutes and knock out like 20 or 30 messages, but then I have a brain shutdown, you know?
It's just clout shit, right? Like, it's just for clout. It's like, oh, follow for follow. Like, follow me. Oh, why don't you follow me back? Or, like, what does it matter? Like you're following me because you're interested in what's going on in my life. Like, I'm not following you because I'm not that interested in what's going on in your life, or your feed's not like your timeline or your feed or whatever on Instagram is a curated list of shit you're interested in. Like he's only following 100 people because they're influential or interesting people or whatever. Like, I obviously like some close friends and shit too, but like, what do I want to see like 50 different selfies with your cat for whatever? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was just like, why would anybody want to clutter? It's like asking for junk mail.
Yeah. But like we were saying, it goes beyond just being a junk mail that you can delete. With the way social media works, it influences your brain. Like the way when you look at these things, it for sure has an effect. Anyone that thinks it doesn't is crazy because these companies spend billions of dollars making sure that you being on social media has an effect on your brain. And it's like Yavid had mentioned one time, this was a while ago, but he's like, I'm just going to unfollow everyone and only follow people that are doing something creative or influential.
Which would be none of my friends.
Like ballerinas or artists or something.
Yeah.
Because if you look at that and you scroll through and you see just a bunch of bullshit, your brain is affected by that, for sure.
Yeah, because I hate to be the dude that just says it sucks, because it don't. There's some shit on there that's just mind-blowing. So then I always wonder, why aren't I looking at that and I'm just looking at my friends' kids that I don't give a fuck about? The pictures.
Well, maybe the kids.
Like, it's just a picture of a kid I see
like
every day. I don't need to see this fucking kid. I see it in real
Just
life.
here. You took a picture here with the kid in the living room for clout.
So yeah, I think about that stuff. Like, should I follow only interesting stuff that I want to look at rather than people I know?
I'm going to go back a little bit to kind of what we started talking about, and you said that crazy and genius are the yin and the yang, and you can't have one without the other. Do you think that there's not an element of someone being crazy until they're considered a genius? Or, you know what I mean? Like, if Kanye was doing a bunch of crazy shit, but he wasn't like a successful musician or a successful clothing designer, would you think he was a genius? No.
No, and what I like to think about is the gradient of that. So if you were a C level celebrity or a B level and you put Make America Great Again, your ass is out of here.
Right. Canceled.
But when you're Kanye, everyone ignores it. I think it's the same way with anything. I think sometimes you don't have the juice to really do these power moves like that. I think it's really something when people say things like, oh yeah, but that's Clint Eastwood. Hollywood is X, Y, and Z besides Clint Eastwood. You know what I mean? It's just like, man, that dude has so much clout. Your whole industry can't even fuck with him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even if he does put the Make America Great, he's still packing a theater, plugging his cell phone in. You guys can't even pack the theater playing a show.
Right.
So, I like when people have that kind of... I like when people of that stature have those kind of balls still. Because usually you lose the balls getting there.
Who else is doing stuff like that?
No one really.
'Cause
It's
like-
all contrived.
Like Drake doesn't do anything like that.
Nah.
Or
Anyone who does do stuff like it's like fake. It's saying, it's explaining the joke to where they're saying they are doing it, which means you're not doing it. You know what I mean?
right. Or to take it out of hip hop, there's no metal bands doing that. Not one.
No.
That are on that level. What's the biggest metal bands? Slayer, Metallica, Slipknot. They're not doing anything crazy. They're putting on cool shows.
They're
But-
just doing what they've always
Right.
done, essentially. Like, they're not really switching it up much. at
Kanye
all.
is out here building architectural communities to have gospel choirs sing in, renting out the Fox Theater in Detroit, telling 3,000 people to show up for free, playing his album. Like, what? That's crazy.
When you put it into words, yeah. It is. It is. And the annoying part these days to me about it is all of those gestures go unrecognized, and then someone can come along and say something about what they're doing, and people take it as the absolute fact because people are so stupid they can't pick up on all the things you just said. They can only pick up on what the person tells them that they should pick up on. Like, Ye puts a free ass listening party in a theater. You forget entirely that it was free and you didn't pay, and he had to pay.
A lot of money, probably.
Right. And and you forget all of that stuff, and you listen to the guy that says he's doing it for the love of the fans, but charging you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you're so stupid, you can't see the real gestures. And I think we talked about this before when I said King is the most punk rock group out there, because of every gesture we do is real punk rock. And everyone who claims to be it's just a contrived ploy, like a publicity stunt move.
I don't want to say this in any negative way, but there's this band. I don't really know much about them, just some stuff I've seen on Twitter, and I've seen a lot of Twitter hype, which doesn't mean anything. But they rented a U-Haul and played a show out of the back of the U-Haul to probably less than 50 people in like downtown Detroit, and I've seen like people saying like they're the second coming of the punk rock age and like this and that, and I was just thinking to myself like, the Fever 333 did that 4 years ago. And even then, it wasn't original, because bands have done that for decades.
Ever, right.
But it's like that's heralded as something crazy.
Which is not. Yeah, I don't know why.
Like it's a cool thing to do, I guess.
Yeah.
It's Hazel's equivalent of go to a baseball field and plug in and play King, and just whoever shows up.
But what about it is punk rock? Like, what makes it punk rock?
My point is nothing.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
I don't want to say that it sucked, because all these things are really cool, but to me there's nothing punk rock about it. Like when Rage goes and plays on the steps of Congress or whatever, that is, because that's real. They really did it. But that is anything else is it's not the second coming of anything. Right. It's the fifth coming, because it's already been done 4 times.
Is the Beatles playing on the roof of the Apple building punk rock?
No. I mean, it's not punk rock when you have your publicist go out there and make sure that it's in Vice and make sure that it's in Fader and Dazed and all of the other cool press darling publications, because you know people don't know that you have people hired to cover the event that you claim is guerrilla style, you know what I mean?
Rage had, was it Michael Moore shot that music video of them playing on the steps? Or was that something else?
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's the first I've ever heard about that, so I don't know.
Maybe I'm just making it up, but it sounds like something that wouldn't be that crazy.
But the thing with these other things, too, versus the Rage things, that, like, Rage, like you said, like, they just showed up and did it. They didn't get proper permits or you know, anybody's green light. Like, you know, these other places, like you said, like, they, you know, they have their publicists go out and make it a big deal. But, you know, they had to go through the proper channels and get the okay and all kinds of, you know, paperwork and everything, whatever, to do it. You know, this band playing up in the U-Haul, I mean, you want to break it down to the, you know, basic elements. I mean, they had to go and work their, you know, normal day-to-day job and go rent the U-Haul and sign for it. You know, they didn't just steal a trailer and start driving around the town.
That would be punk rock.
Just rocking out, just blasting music, you know.
We got to do that. I'm Hazel.
You know, I mean, what did they pull up into a parking lot? Like, it was, all of it just seems very safe. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And not the, you know, you're not risking anything for it. You're not putting anything on the line for it. And that's what punk rock is, right? Like,
to me, yeah. I mean, if you risk nothing, it's not worth anything. And that's not to say it's not cool. It's something cool because something, you know, outside of the norm is kind of cool, a little different, whatever. For some points, doesn't make it cool, but it makes it a little cooler than normal. But yeah, what's the risk, I guess? That's what I always look at. What's the risk? What did this person risk? And most of the time you'll find out that all these big punk rock endeavors the risk was nothing.
Right. The risk is nobody shows up. Right. Go ahead.
I was just saying, even them doing it is not, if they do it and nobody shows up, they do it and 1,000 people show up, like, the act of them doing it doesn't put them at any risk if it goes poorly.
Sure.
No one's gonna be like, oh, this band did that, like, they're assholes, or oh, this band, or they, you know, they're doing that, like, it's it's just not cool, like whatever. It just
Yeah.
does nothing. If it does nothing, it does nothing.
Right. I was thinking when you had first mentioned it, when you were talking about Ye, a strange thing to think about would be the people that were crazy, didn't break through to the successful, and then be lauded a genius, but died.
Such
and were
as
lauded a genius almost posthumously or whatever it may be.
do you have like an example?
Van Gogh.
Okay.
But I mean, there are plenty.
Here might be a hot take, but I feel like people do that with a lot of these modern rappers, like Lil Peep.
Right.
They were saying he was really changing the game and this and that, but like, I mean, I'd heard people talk about him before he died, but you really started hearing about it after he died.
Yeah. It's like anyone that dies was changing the game.
Yeah. Is
But
that because people want to try to have some kind of cred? Because
I think that's how the world is today. You hear so-and-so, modern day so-and-so every fucking minute. You
Well,
hear
that's
it
just 'cause
in
you hang out
sports.
with me.
No, I mean in sports, you know.
yeah.
LeBron is the Michael, is the so Beyonce is the modern Michael, and that it's just it's pitiful and it's wrong, but it's also stupid because that's not how time works. There wasn't a former day and now there's a latter day. It's just moving
Yeah.
and it's not the same. I mean, I would be insulted if I were the modern day so-and-so because the world's so different.
You shouldn't really be able to be compared to somebody from the past, because then it means you're doing nothing original, right?
I think people overlook it.
I do have a thought experiment, since I am sitting here with 100% of King 810's band.
Can I stop you before you get into this? Just because I feel like this is going into a different direction.
It's
and
not, but go ahead.
I just wanted to jump on this point because I was thinking about it earlier when you were, talking about Ye and how, people, you go in with this, like, these expectations, the Tarantino movies,
Sure.
like, you go in with these expectations, and when it's not what you already think it's going to be without ever seeing it, you're let down. And I think this, applies to what we were just talking about, like, when you have these ideas and these expectations, and you're only as good as the greatest thing before you. When you talk about LeBron's the modern day Michael Jordan, Beyonce's the modern day Michael Jackson, like, it's like you're only ever as good as the greatest thing to come before you. And it's the same thing with music and people's albums. You're only as good as what people think is your best work beforehand. And it can't just be like, oh, this was still a good album, like, even if it wasn't your best work.
Yeah.
Like, everybody, I think, will unanimously agree for the most part that Kanye's best work was, Dark Fantasy, but
He was kind of nervous to say that. He was like, is someone going to call me out for this?
no, I just I was just thinking of everything, but I mean, obviously other people are gonna have differing opinions, but for the most part, that's his most popular work, and so because of that, they're gonna say Ye is trash. They're gonna say Life of Pablo is trash, or whatever, because it's not that.
Right.
They have an expectation for what a Kanye album is, and
All the backpackers say that it was Graduation or whatever.
Right,
You know what
that's
I mean?
why.
Stuff
That's
like,
kind of why I hesitated. But I mean, come on, let's be real.
yeah.
But that idea that you're only as good as the best thing to come before you, like, I feel like is a mentality that a lot of people have, and it's not a good one to have.
I usually step outside of it just as another experiment to just examine who I'm talking to. Even though it's just complete stereotyping and profiling, it's always true. You get those from the, 35-year-olds will say, like, college dropout and Graduation. We say Dark Twisted Fantasy. The kids will say Ye and other stuff. But it's the same for it's almost the same for anyone, but also it's like on their timeline kind of thing, or where they're from, or whatever it was, that's their people, you know what I mean? Kind of like your parents had these things that they listened to growing up that they still listen to. And we say it like our parents still listen to the stuff they listened to growing up, like we've grown up to not listen to the stuff that we listened to when we were young already, to pass the judgment that they're no different than us. But we don't have that perspective, so
Isn't it kind of funny to think that, like, when we get old, and the radio station's going to be playing oldies, and it's going to be like Bad and Bougie by Migos or something? You know what I mean?
I don't think
like,
it's going to be like that anymore. I think it's going to be a little bit different than that. But the annoying part, I guess, would be the inability to recognize the genius dynamic, which is kind of what you started off talking about when you were saying just as great as he is crazy. What's a weird thing people do is they take the great shit in any kind of sign of the negative things. So say he puts the hat on or whatever it may have been, anything he does that you don't like, you ignore all the genius parts. Like, it was completely okay when he fit the common narrative of left, liberal, black rapper, when he said George Bush don't care about black people. Everyone was championing him.
they just thought it was kind of funny, or
They thought he was
didn't
the
care.
coolest, realest dude in the room. But when he said to Make America Great, he's the worst. He's done lost his mind. Like, losing his mind is basically saying we all agreed with him, but now we don't, so he must be crazy. But nothing's changed.
it's not
He's
crazy
still
to
doing
think
the same thing, essentially.
that the richest person in hip-hop would support Trump. You know what I mean?
That's another weird thing, that all these multi-millionaires act like, okay, if you're a Democrat and if you think you are liberal, your accountant's not. So whoever's handling your
Right.
money most definitely is not a liberal. But all that aside, I it's the same thing to me when you say George Bush doesn't give a fuck or whatever it may have been, right? And the world hated George Bush. Or who's the president, and he was like the guy, and you're saying this guy sucks, right?
Right.
Well, everyone's saying Trump sucks, and he said this guy's cool. It's the same thing. You know what I mean? There's no difference. He's still going against, you know what I mean, the thinking. If you were someone like Eminem, you're just saying everyone sucks. Bill Clinton sucked, Bush sucked. You're bitching about every president. Trump sucked. Quiet on Obama because no one can say anything. But yeah, he's not doing that. He's pretty much challenges the status quo each time, you know what I mean?
Do you think he's doing that on purpose?
I think it's genuine.
Okay.
But I also think he's just advanced to the point that I was getting at, which was it's just the ability to examine facets of things. And I think everyone agrees or disagrees with things a la carte, but they act like they do wholesale. For example, every rapper in the world was rapping about how they were the Black Donald Trump when they were rapping. I can quote 10 rap songs right now that
before he
quoted
was
themselves
president.
the Black Donald Trump. Now that it's just, you better not. Saying that you voted for Trump or a Republican is like saying you're gay in 1980. It's the worst thing you can do, and you probably shouldn't even say it, right? And now everyone just acts like they didn't say it before, though. They act like they didn't have 5 songs about being the Black Donald Trump. But the point is, I don't think he works in black and whites. I think it's
He's kind of just being
gradients,
him.
it's dynamic, you know what I mean? It's all the gray area. He's identifying the things. When he says things, they're not wrong, but you don't necessarily know how right they are. And
Right.
that's just, it's not the popular opinion. You can't get the 12-second news snippet quote on the television or whatever it may be. It can't be summarized in a shitty headline. as a hot take, or you know what I mean, or a meme, or whatever it may have been. So it doesn't go down well. Like I said, him doing the free theater with the free everything and just coming out of pocket to have people listen to his album will never be looked at like he's benevolent or charitable at all. But the rapper over here that's charging around every corner, that says that he does it for the love of his fans, or any musician, I mean, pop, it doesn't matter what you do with the rock or whatever, he'll be looked at exactly like how he tells people that he wants to be looked at, which is like, oh, I only do it for my fans. Yet none of your actions reflect that. And it kind of ties all the ideas we're talking about together when I was talking about King and being punk rock and things like that. It's like the actions kind of speak for themselves, and everyone else's actions are just things that they're saying. They're telling you that this is punk rock. The narrative just reinforced by publications and other people, which is just social proofing, repeating the same shit over and over again, you know what I mean? That's the only reason why people believe these things. People don't believe a group's good until 100 people believe they're good, and
Right.
300 people think they're good. And it's the same with the geniusness. That's why sometimes these fucking people die before people are like, wait a minute, this
He
was
really doing
genius.
something.
It's always post hoc, and we talk about this, I think, a few times ago about the A&R idea,
Oh yeah.
what I call the A&R conundrum, which is anytime something comes across their desk, they just talk about how it could be a little bit better. That way they can say that they did their job.
Right.
And yeah.
One thing that's interesting about the Kanye thing, how you were saying no one's gonna look at him and say he was benevolent. People were complaining that he was like 30 minutes to an hour late. I don't really remember how late he was, but it's like
To a free.
he came to Detroit and played a show for free. Then he let you into his album listening party for free, and you're mad that he's late.
Because your time's so valuable.
Whereas his time probably actually is valuable.
I mean,
The
it
dude is
has
running
to
a
be.
huge clothing company,
A huge musical
a
company.
huge musical company.
And the chick he has with him is running something bigger than all of those combined.
Right. He's the
Yeah.
goat.
It's just, it's retardation. It's Mike Judge Idiocracy, the movie. Every single day, all these people are fucking clowns.
One thing I wanted to say at the thought experiment, while I've got both of you guys here,
100% of King.
100% of King, the band.
And
That's there's just an important note there.
the entity that is King is much greater than that, but yeah.
Do a little thought experiment and think about things that King has done on a Kanye level. What would be considered genius that you just think that people think was crazy only because you're not Kanye and you're King? For example, you made a porno.
It's a big one.
The most punk rock bands of punk rock bands that you can name have never made one.
But if Kanye did it,
You like my answer? That was it.
most punk rock bands have never done it. Or like, we filmed the Heartbeats video on 8mm, and I don't think anyone even noticed. You know what I mean?
They
Like
just
that's-
think it's some shitty quality. They're like, would you record this on a potato?
Right. That's what they said.
It's like YouTube, just standard YouTube comments.
That's
It's
funny as
like-
fuck.
That shit was stupid of us to do. And if you really think about it logistically, that was a stupid thing to do.
It's-
It cost way more money, it was way harder, and took way more time because we
was
did that.
$2,000 in rolls of film. Do you know what our budget for the video was?
$2,000 for the rolls of film.
0. But
For shit that looked to intentionally look outdated, like we could have just recorded it on our cell phones and put shitty filters on it, and it would have looked.
yeah, that was just a vision, though.
It's just,
you know?
yeah, I mean, you gotta have the whole vibe. The whole vibe.
It kind of rings back to what we first started talking about, where I'm saying I always hearken back to the idea of, is it the Prestige that I always say that King is the Christian Bale, or is it the Illusionist?
It's
With Ed Norton.
Prestige is Christian
Prestige
Bale.
is
Ed Norton's
Bale and
the
Hugh
Illusionist.
Jackman.
Yeah.
I always feel like King is Christian Bale's character in the Prestige. They have a really good trick, but they're not good showmen. So, for
Okay.
example, and this will answer your question, believe it or not. I won't talk about punk rock and porno, but we don't have 100 people with cameras in the room capturing it and making sure everyone in the world knows about our charitable gesture. It's like when the water thing happened. Whatever we were doing, people were just bitching about how, we claim Flynn and we're not helping. It's like, helping, we live here, we mean you help us. But that's not the point. The point is, because we didn't have a publicist pumping out stupid ass clips of us doing something charitable. It's the same thing for what you just said with the porno, with the heartbeats, or whatever it may have been. We just post it. We'll do something that would be the highlight of someone's career, and then just post it on a Wednesday and be like, yeah, peep game. Everyone else has 16 photo sets, 90 behind the scenes clips, 3 publicists working on 16 magazines trying to corroborate some type of premiere with a big news outlet or whatever it may have been, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's good that we suck at showmanship, but we do, for sure. I don't even think a lot of people know these things that you're talking about.
The porno and the 8mm?
No, just in general, though. I don't even think we do, even though because every project that we do is something like that, which is the only reason why we kind of do it, because it's interesting, right?
And new.
And new and unusual. So pretty much every project that we do has some type of many different new, unusual, and noteworthy elements that we never publicize.
Like King only has one that I can think of performance music video, right? Alpha and Omega. But even then, you're in a real abandoned church, and it's about.
Yeah, unless you
Catholic,
want to just sound like live videos or some shit.
No, yeah,
that's just live videos. But yeah.
Like most bands' creative vision is it's us playing guitars, but.
Well, because they have no
In
creative
a dank
vision.
basement.
Right. Or it's us playing guitars.
In a dank basement.
Or it's us playing guitars, doing something, you know?
Right.
Or
In the desert.
right. There's a light bulb
You
hanging.
know how many
from-
times I've seen a band just in the desert for no reason at all?
But if we did it, we would go to the fucking Sahara, and we'd get lost in that bitch for a month, and then we'd shoot the video.
Right, well, we wouldn't shoot us just sitting there playing. We'd shoot all the other cool shit, the real cool shit that we did. Not
Because
just
these
sitting there
dudes
with
aren't
our-
actually going to the desert. They're going to Arizona, pulling over on the side of the road, and then pointing the camera so it looks like they're in the desert.
Right. Yeah, that's maybe one thing, but I think it's a lot of it is presentation. I don't think we present things well. Well by the definition of the world, which is how you have to act, right? Not well by our definition.
Right.
We clearly don't care.
We think we're the shit.
For some fucked up reason that's half true. But it's more of just, I mean, you've seen it before. You've seen publications run people's backhanded comments on a Instagram Live as if it's newsworthy.
Right.
You're just like, man, they're really fishing for these ideas, but they're not. People publicize these ideas. They're packaged and thrown out. They remind me of when someone does some type of piece of content and then like clips it up into a bunch of small pieces and then mislabels it to where it's misleading and things like that. That type of thing. It's like explaining the joke. When someone says you did this because you're the second coming of punk, it usually means you're not. You know?
Right.
The true second coming of punk really should never even be known on that level, right? Because really doing it punk is doing it the way we do it, where it doesn't get publicized and we just do it because we want to do it, and it ends up just going by the wayside because nobody really finds out about it. Like I would say the majority of people who have heard about King do not know that we have a porno.
No.
The
I don't
majority
think so, yeah.
the majority of people, like all those people that got offended when we released Kill 'Em All and it had this big, rollout on Roadrunner, where were they when we released Desperate Lovers, which was a far more quote unquote offensive video, I would say.
Yeah, countries don't even play it on their. It's not even. You can't even look it up in most countries.
There's live fucking drug use in it, like people actually shooting up.
That's the thing.
But like they freaked out because of shit you can see on the 10 o'clock news every fucking day.
Right. I think that is a.
I don't know. News is not a 10. I just said that, but
that's one point to answer your question that you just asked a minute ago, which was, as far as the project goes, what's a crazy kind of project that people might not know about, or your favorite one, or whatever. You had asked that, right?
Just in general, something that you thought might be considered crazy, but is actually
that's an idea
the right
I didn't even
perspective.
think of. Live heroin addicts shooting heroin in the music video, which I just figured most people thought it was fake. But at the end, you can see when he shoots up, you can see his eyes bulge, like his pupils just dilate and blow up.
CGI, you know what I mean? Like anyone could.
No.
That's what someone would say.
Well, here's a little behind the scenes. We did Desperate Lovers with our phones or some shit, and there was no crew. That's an idea, though. That's an idea of something that's a bit extreme that I don't see too much of it in videos or documentaries, musical ones.
that's comparing it to like the punk rock scene, though. But to answer what you were saying about, do we have anything that we feel like has been like on a visionary level, that we feel like has gone like overlooked? I mean, look at everything we do between albums. Everything we do between albums is like something crazy that like we felt like, okay, well, it can't go on this album, but we want to do it. And then like Midwest Monsters 2 was all collaborations with rappers. Queen was an entire acoustic piano EP. Like, it's just like, who else who would be labeled a metal band, as we so commonly are, would do these things? It seems like career suicide, right? I mean,
yeah, and maybe it is. Maybe we'd be way bigger if we just made the same album every time like the rest of the bands. But yeah, what's the difference between what we do and what is just championed across the board as a modern day Frank Zappa or something like that? You know what I mean? Well, what else would you say? A hipster dream of a different sound every time you make a project.
Right.
I don't know what would be on par.
I mean, those are pretty good.
I think
Pretty good.
we
answers.
touched on a couple, but most things that we do are like that. There's some type of depth to them. If you don't get that, you probably just can't see it. It definitely doesn't mean it isn't there. That kind of bothers me sometimes when people talk to me about, say, Yavid. They claim that I'm a genius in King, but not in Yavid. And I just ask, kind of, are you sure you're catching everything then? Because what did I do? Turn the switch off?
Do people just have a certain predisposition to thinking hip-hop music is worse than metal music or rock music? Certain people.
I really don't
metal
know.
people.
Right.
Yeah, metal dumbasses. I'll just say it. I mean, like, the metal community is one of the like most like elitist and like I'd say self-cannibalizing communities in all of music. The newest, most unpopular genre of all music that's supposed to be this like all-inclusive like safe haven for the outcasts, for the runaways,
I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
I think so.
And no one probably paid attention, but
you sit here and you say that metal can't be this and it can't be that, and there's all these fucking rules, and anybody who goes against those rules gets shunned. as we have.
Right. But it's like, well, that's when people say things like that, I'm kind of just like, well, isn't that proof we're not that?
It's proof right
Have
there.
you ever thought of that answer?
Exactly.
That's
I
proof right there.
I never tell when people ask, well, what do you guys sound like? People that, you know, that I meet that are just, you know, like end up telling them I'm in a band. They're like, well, what kind of music are you guys? And I just say, it's heavy. Well, like
I
heavy,
usually say
like
rock
heavy
band.
metal. Like, I don't even like saying that we're a rock band though. It's just, it's too, I feel like it doesn't do it justice for everything that we do. But it's heavy, but it's all heavy because heavy's not just loud,
It's like
crunching
feel,
guitars
like
and
mood.
fucking riffs.
Wow, this is heavy, man.
Right.
This dude's
Right.
giving a sermon.
Could you imagine if King, as an entity, had as much money, influence, and fans as Kanye West?
We'd probably be dead. I mean,
What would we do?
fuck, dumb shit, dude. I mean, like, I mean, cool shit, but like, I mean, look at the level we're at now, and you guys are going running with the Bulls. Like, if we had millions of dollars and all this fame and success, and everyone's eyes on us, and we can just do whatever the fuck we want, we'd be just sailing across the world, jumping out of planes, and going and being on like the real secret safari shit in Africa that you can only get if you have fucking, you pay the guy $50,000 to take you off the fucking trail where nobody else can go.
You know what I would do? I would skydive out of a plane onto my own private yacht. I would land
See what
on
I'm
it.
saying? That's like, you wouldn't even, like, you just think about that and you're like, well, wow.
You just said, wait a minute. Yeah, exactly.
I said, wait a minute, because you said you'd skydive out of a plane out of your own private yacht.
In
your
onto.
private jet,
I
on
would
your own private
skydive
jet.
out of my
Private
own
jet,
private
You
private
said
yacht.
out. So what I was thinking, why don't you wait a minute? I was thinking your yacht was so big that it was airborne. And that you could skydive
A
out of
multi-story.
it.
Yeah.
Right. Skydive out of it and back into it. But hey, if you got Kanye money, you probably could. If you really wanted to.
Mega yacht.
Dumb, but
Shout out
like,
Tim
but
Yachts.
that's what I'm saying. This is his idea. When we sit here and say, you got all this money, what do you do with it? That's his idea. That's what he comes at you with.
I have a bunch of things that I would like to do, but
All the
I don't
things.
think it's a crazy stuff. I guess it's just like I just think it's a magnification or like of what I'm already doing. You know?
To a greater degree.
Yeah, I think money is just a multiplier, like a force multiplier, I guess. So if you're a fucking bum ass loser,
You hit the lotto and have a bunch of money.
everyone knows what happens when that
You're a
happens.
bum ass loser.
What's funny is that people say that that wouldn't be them. It's just everyone else who hits. You know what I mean?
Well, everyone likes to think that they're the exception.
I know.
Let's confine the question though to like, not just, okay, you got a bunch of money, what would you do? But, you know, something, the idea of like, what would we do as king if we had the money, the resources, the power, the scope of yay?
We would be touring the world, right? And our show would be crazy.
Yeah, well, we would do what, less shows in more obscure areas. That's the thing. Like, I've always wanted to do a show in Africa. Who's going to Africa and like doing a show like,
Yeah. I
and
was
just and it
gonna
just
say,
being
like,
huge, just
indefinitely
crazy, like
on the road, indefinitely doing the craziest shows in the
Right.
craziest places. So, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Middle East, desert, Africa, West Africa, like Ghana, Mozambique, stuff like that. Not like southern, but all those types of places with really wild shows that we can't necessarily do now.
right, like take like Metallica playing in Antarctica, but like just times 10 in every show that we do.
Yeah. And even if there's 10 people there.
Right, just say we did it, and then just be chilling there for a couple weeks or so. Do a one show a month, but that whole month we're like on the scene, like the whole month we're in Southeast Asia, the whole month we're in Africa or whatever, and we do our one show at the end of it or whatever. So that way we're really in the think about where your mind is. You spend a month in, you know, not in the city, in the shit,
Right.
in the huts, wearing loincloths and shit. You know what I'm saying? Hunting for your food. And then you do a show at the end of that month. What the fuck does that look like? What does that sound like?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking the same thing. So pretty much just what we do times multiplied, I guess. You know.
Dude, I just saw something walking up the street, and I just gotta say, how wild was last night?